Hello there and welcome back to another one of my thrilling videos. It's great to be back. So today, something a little bit different, as you've probably already figured out. Today we're going to be looking at some software, namely Dehancer, or for the purposes of this review, Dehancer Pro for Final Cut Pro. So as per usual, whenever I do a video with a little bit more detail, I have my trusty notes to hand, and that will mean that maybe I look away from the camera a little bit more than normal, but that's because I want to get that kind of level of detail in there for those of you that are interested in the product, which is Dehancer. So just before we start, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit more how I got to learn about Dehancer and why I'm reviewing the product. So Dehancer Pro is a software which allows the everyday person to carry out film-like colour grading on their video and photo projects. This review has been carried out on Final Cut Pro, but other Dehancer versions are available for DaVinci, Adobe Premiere, Adobe Photoshop, and you can also use Dehancer on iPhones or on iOS. We'll talk a little bit about that toward the ends of this review. So firstly, Dehancer reached out to me and asked me to make a review for them using my platform of choice, which is obviously Final Cut Pro. They've given me 4 weeks of free access to the app, but upon reviewing their product for them, they'll give me full access to use Dehancer Pro for free. So there's no payment involved, but obviously they will be allowing me full access to use it on completion of the review. Also, stay tuned until the end of the video for more information about how you can get a 10% off discount code for Dehancer. If you use the link provided, I will make a small amount which will be put back into the channel. So just before we start, I thought it'd be nice to mention the creator of Dehancer, a gentleman by the name of Pavel Kosenko. I will put a link in the description below in regards to the origins of Dehancer, but I've just got a little bit that I want to read, which kind of gives you an idea about how this all started, and it's called The Origins of the Idea, and this is from Pavel's own words. At the time, I travelled a lot and shot mainly with digital cameras. I would bring thousands of photographs from my trips and would spend a lot of time selecting and processing. However, over 10 years, I learned to do it quickly, and at some point I realised that the processing of most images comes down to the specific and almost always one algorithm: setting the black and white points, adjusting the white balance, increasing contrast, and lowering the saturation. So you kind of get an idea that that Pavel became so kind of immersed in that world that he started to realise that he could make his film or maybe his photographic projects look like a specific thing, and that is kind of the idea of Dehancer, allowing the consumer to grade their film or their video projects or their photograph projects even to look like a specific kind of camera or cine camera. So let's crack on. So you might be asking, how did I go about planning and carrying out this review? Well, the first thing that I considered was what camera to shoot on. Now, at the time, I was thinking in kind of cinematic mode, but also considering quality. Initially, I was going to shoot in 4K, but after some further thinking, I decided to shoot on my trusty Sony HVR Z5e. And it's actually the camera that I'm shooting on to do this video. And this was because the camera offered me a wider shooting angle, but also allowed me to better manipulate the focus and the aperture, allow me to capture images I would otherwise not be able to. I also chose the Z5e because I felt like a 1080p resolution alongside the 25p frame rate would offer the best film-like presentation. Finally, I chose to record externally using my Atomos Ninja Star so that I could take advantage of its ability to capture ProRes 422 in 8-bit, so that it ensured I was able to capture as much detail as possible. So there you go. So after I'd chosen my equipment, I had to find some inspiration. And that was quite straightforward on this occasion, actually. At present, I'm actually watching a TV series from the late 1990s. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Millennium. And if you haven't seen it, I'd highly recommend it. It was created by Chris Carter, who also created The X-Files, and I really love the music for this show, much of which was composed by Mark Snow, also of The X-Files. So you can kind of see like the kind of similar feel. I certainly won't be able to monetize this video though, but that's okay because I want to share my creative process. So upon watching Millennium, I instantly fell in love with the opening credits. It's so cinematic and full of melancholy, and I knew that it was something that I wanted to try and recreate in some way, but I also knew that I was having to do the project on my own and only had a few hours to plan, shoot and edit the project, or short sequence even. So I knew that I was only going to be able to do so much because of time constraints. Be aware that this sequence has not been graded with Dehancer at this stage. So have a little look at this sequence which I shot, and then what we'll do, we'll start talking about using Dehancer and grading the footage. Okay, so that was my sequence. What did you think? Let me know in the comments below. And obviously that is with no grading at all. So this sequence was shot for the purpose of grading with Dehancer Pro. One thing I just want to talk about before we just start looking at and comparing what was shot, so you can kind of see a before and after, is that the settings that you will be able to manipulate when you are using Dehancer Pro. Now, I actually didn't understand a lot of the terms, and after finishing the edit by just kind of going by my gut, I found on the iOS app some explanation of the terms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly go through them so that you have an idea of what they are. So if you ever get it yourself, you've got a better understanding. And I'll put some little pictures up on the screen so you can just read along with me. But yeah, I just thought I'd do that. And I think the first place to start is one of the cool things which I really enjoyed about making this review is there's so many different film profiles. I am by no means an expert. I only use maybe 3 or 4 film stocks in my life. But one thing that I did know was about motion picture film, and I thought, I hope they've got Kodak on there. So looking through the film profiles, and obviously yes, they was. So I opted to go with Kodak Vision 250D because I just love the look of that whenever I've seen YouTube videos or I've seen presentations. So to be able to select that and make my film look like it was shot with that film stock was really cool. But there's like 60 plus like film stocks, and I'll show you some of those actually in the video later on. But just, if you've got an idea before shooting, if I can make my project look like, have a look, see if Dehancer's got it, because if they have, then fantastic. So I just wanted to talk about that. Okay, so there's loads of different presets and things like that, so I'm just going to quickly run through those now. So your presets. So this recreates a retro film vibe with a large set of fine-tuned presets developed by the Dehancer team and influencers from all over the world. Create and share your custom presets in a few taps. So that's fantastic. The next one, print tools. Combine any film with a print profile to get a truly analog image. Every print medium has its own character, photo latitude and contrast, with a lot of controls that make it a versatile, creative tool. Next up, we have film compression. Emulate the film-like compressed tonal range by adjusting the highlights. The resulting image looks more analog and becomes more flexible for further editing. Film grain, which is pretty cool, which is what I liked. Dehancer grain stands out from the crowd. It isn't just scanned and overlaid on the image. Instead, our unique algorithm turns an image into lots of little granules based on local colour and brightness of the scene. Film grain is fully customizable, of course. Halation. Now, halation, I had no idea what it was. Halation is an inherent film emulsion effect, a red-orange halo around light sources, specular highlights and contrasting edges. It also makes skin tone more attractive and natural. In Dehancer, this effect is reproduced as close as possible to the real film. And I wish I'd known that beforehand. Bloom. Bloom originates in the lens and is amplified by the emulsion. Also called glow or mist, it helps to achieve this warm vintage film look and is useful in simulating optical filters and small format films. Vignette. Vignetting is usually considered a lens flaw, but it is also a great tool to add depth and set the accent in the frame. For best results, adjust vignette at the start of processing as it greatly affects exposure and contrast. And lastly, film breath and gate weave. Animated effects dynamically bring video to life by making subtle changes and picture shifts between adjacent frames, just like in a real film movie. Now, I think it's really important that we understand how to use those, because I didn't, and that's because I'm not an expert. And finding out about these a little later was great, but I wish I'd known them beforehand. So what I would say is that it would be really useful if there was something that Dehancer could point you towards to help you understand that before editing. And maybe there is something, because they did send me a lot of information, press pack and stuff like that, and I could have missed it, but I think it would just be really useful when you download it, if maybe when you click on each one, it maybe gives you a little description so that you understand what you're using. So I just wanted to talk about that. Just before we continue, I just want to add an additional piece of information which I came to learn about as I neared the end of this edit. In actual fact, all of the information pertaining to the settings was part of the Final Cut Pro plugin quick guide. After using this to install the plugin, I never returned to it. I think this is because it is referred to as a quick guide, and in my experience, quick guides are generally not full of detail, just the bare bones to support the consumer to set up. I just thought that it was important to highlight this as something I missed and to commend Dehancer on their detailed guide. Okay, so without further ado, now I'm going to jump into some screen recordings that I made, and I'm going to talk to you about the process that I went on in order to grade the film with Dehancer Pro. Okay, so this first screen recording is me just in the process of grading my sequence. And as you can see here, I'm on the second part of the sequence, and I'm just selecting or showing you that you have to select the effects panel, find Dehancer Pro, and then you have to drag the effects into the part that you want to edit. And then if you look at the top right hand side, you'll now see that we are on Dehancer Pro, and it is ticked blue as being on. And now you can I'm showing you the various different film stocks that you can select. So as you can see here, I'm just going through them, just selecting them just to show you how they're changing the image, and just kind of as I'm scrolling here, the changes that will happen. So just going to let you have a little watch of that, and at the end of this clip you'll just see me selecting my film stock of choice, and obviously that was Kodak 250D or Kodak Vision 3 250D, and that was the one that I stuck with for this particular project all the way through. That was my film stock of choice. And as you can see right now, I'm just taking that effect off by clicking by Dehancer Pro there and putting it back on so that you can just see that difference. Okay, so this next sequence, I've already graded the actual sequence itself, but I've done a little bit at the end to show you what I graded it in, and then I change it to show you some different effects. So at the moment you can see me just going to source and selecting choose camera. Next up I go to vendor or vendor, and I choose Arri as the vendor. Next up I go for camera, and we have the Alexa Mini, which was the camera that I decided to grade the overall footage with, or the camera effect. And then we go to format. Now I'm not necessarily the biggest expert in understanding how the formats work, but I just selected Log C as it was the only one available to me. And what you see there is how my film or sequence looks. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it up. So if you see, I've selected Sony, and I was thinking, what camera should I go for? And as I have no experience, I just selected one. So this was the Cinema Line FX6, and then I selected a log, and was just curious to see how it was going to come out. And for me, this was one of the fun parts of this actual video, was just kind of experimenting and seeing what the different presets were going to give me. Because for me, as somebody that's quite new to this, I was totally unsure. And as you can see here, I'm just kind of playing around with the first lot of settings to show me what is going on, because there was nobody there to teach me or show me how to use this software. So like I said, a lot of this was me trying to understand and figure out what I wanted the film to look like. And in some ways, that's a lot of fun. Now, I was in two minds. I was going to kind of change the film stock totally, but in the end, after kind of clicking and moving around the different stocks, I decided to go back to Kodak Vision 3 250D. Now, there was a section here which said enable beneath it, which is obviously enabling the effect. And just above it, it said push and pull. And I wasn't quite sure what that was doing, but as you can see, I was just playing around with that. And then the next part was film compression. And again, I've clicked it to enable it. And the only way that I was going to figure out how to use it was just by, well, playing around with it. Because as I said, nobody was there to teach me or make me understand what was going on. And this is part of the fun in some ways. Sometimes you buy something and you think, well, I know what it does, but I've got no idea how to use it. And as you can see, that's just me trying to play around and figure out film compression. And those of you that are experts out there will be going, what are you doing? Don't need to do that. But this is a true honest to life review. And I want to be honest about that. So the next part I moved on to was a section called expand. And all that I could gather was it allowed you to manipulate the black and white point, which is quite self-explanatory in itself. So that was okay. Okay, so the next part was the print. And my guess was it was going to enable me to change as to whether or not it was a matte look or a gloss look. You can see there some of the selections that you've got coming up. But once more, I didn't really have a full idea about how these things were going to impact upon the overall, image. But that's why I was playing around, and that's why I wanted to show it to you, because I think there's so much that you can do with regard to grading. And as you can see here, the changes of the tones are just great. Now, on to one of my favourite parts, which was the film grain and the film resolution. And I had quite a bit of fun with this one here. And as you will see any moment now, what I wanted to show you is just just turn off the effects to show you what it looks like without being graded. So Dehancer Pro off, Dehancer Pro on. And now we go back down to the film grain, and then you'll see me increase the size, and then you'll also go to the amount. Now, it might be difficult for you to see on this video. I was trying my best to show you it, but when you actually watch the video, you might be able to see it better. But you should be able to see a little bit of that grain being added. And I didn't want to go overboard, but I certainly did enjoy playing around with the grain. And next up, it was me trying to figure out what halation was. And as I mentioned earlier, halation is like an inherent film emulsion effect, a red-orange halo around light sources. So as you can see here, there's me trying to amend it. And now you can see that. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, wow, that's really cool. I didn't know that that was what halation was, but I love that almost ethereal look that it gave. So, yeah, man, love a little bit of halation. So then I move on finally to bloom, and as you can see here, just me kind of playing around with those bloom effects. And if you look closely, you should be able to kind of see that almost vintage kind of film look that those optical filters try to achieve. I mean, whether or not I think it is or not, but you can see what it does. And like I say, it was fun to kind of play around with that. And then last but not least, you can see me moving on to vignette. And you can see it almost like kind of comes around the corners of what would be the lens. And vignette actually is quite nice. Within the right kind of context, you can get some really great stuff. So, that was me playing around with the settings. And now we're going to have a look at the graded sequence. Okay, so what did you think of the graded section? Do you think it's better, or do you think the original's better? Do you think that Dehancer's actually needed? Let me know in the comments below. I really loved it. as soon as I started messing around with it, even though I'm not an expert and I was almost like just feeling the settings because I didn't really understand them. I really felt like it reminded me of kind of like that era, like kind of 90s TV. The colours kind of seemed to pop out. They were darker, they were lighter. I really enjoyed it. But let me know what you think. So just to finish off kind of like this little grading section, I thought it just might be useful for those of you out there to see a few comparisons. So just made a note of this because I'll forget otherwise. So it's the same videos on repeat. The first video is the original ungraded one, and then the graded one, and it's split into two vertically. Ungraded is on the left and the graded is on the right. I hope that's right for you, but yeah, ungraded on the left and graded on the right. You might notice that there's the odd title change because I was editing them for people with who are colourblind, so I was trying to think about the right colours, so apologies for that if that throws you, but it is what it is. And then the second video is split into two horizontally, ungraded on the top and graded on the bottom. And then once that's done and you've had a look at that and you can see kind of like the comparisons, you can let me know what you think in the comments. And then to finish things off, I regraded the entire video and I edited kind of the whole sequence one more time. So the second grading attempt, which I did, I went for Sigma as the vendor. The camera was the Sigma FP. The format was DNG tungsten. And I chose the film Lomochrome Purple XR with an ISO of 100 to 400. I increased the grain size and I also increased the amount of grain. So after you've seen those two comparison videos, you're going to see the same video again, but it's going to look totally different. So you can let me know what you think of those. So I'm going to let you watch those now, and then I'm going to come back and kind of round this review up. Okay, so what did you think of the grading? Did the horizontal and the vertical splitting help you kind of, understand what was going on or make a decision? Let me know in the comments below. And what did you think of the kind of like purple kind of Lomochrome look? I quite like that. I like the way that kind of all the green kind of just popped out with purples. I really like that. Okay, so just before we get to the end of this review, I'm now just going to talk to you a little bit about the iOS app. So now I'm going to share a screen recording with you, and then once that's over, I'll be back to round up this review. Okay, so here is the Dehancer app on iOS, and as you can see here, I've just opened it up and I've got a couple of my photographs from yesterday when I popped out to the pub, and here we go. Now as you can see here, it says last edits. Now I did open this up after taking this photograph, and all I did was amend the brightness. So it's not my original one, but I decided that this was going to be the one that I was going to use to talk to you about. So here we go. I press edit, and as you see, I'm scrolling along the bottom, and there's all the different options here. So first and foremost, you have source. Okay, so you can amend those source kind of compositions, exposures. Then we go on to film. Now that means you can choose a particular type of film stock to kind of, make your image look kind of exactly how you want it to look. I obviously went for Kodak Gold 200 because I like it. Then you also have options to kind of a developer that you might use that you're quite a fan of. We have compression. We have the ability to expand, and again that's your black and your white point. We have options around print. We have color head. There's a load of options in there, really fantastic. And the film grain option, again, is my favorite. I will play around a little bit more with that in a moment. So now halation, and now we know what halation means. So you kind of get those kind of orange kind of hues around. Similarly for bloom, as we talked about earlier on, and you have the option for vignette. So very similar to kind of what you're doing on your kind of computer. And here I am just kind of playing around with the settings just to kind of give you an idea of kind of what you can do in the sense of kind of exposure, size, loads of different options. But what I wanted to do here is I just went back to the original, went back to source, and as you can see here, just playing around with the color temperature, going back to the kind of films, selecting a different film. So in this case I've gone for a Kodak Portrait option. And I think the thing that I really like about this is that it's just giving you different types of options that you don't necessarily always have in your kind of standard photo editing apps. So I just kind of felt the need just to kind of play around with this, just to show you. Here we are kind of going for a change in the magenta, playing around with the color head, the yellows, just to kind of show you, what you can do. There's a great deal of options that you can just play around with, and if you're really into kind of your film and your videography, I really don't think that there's not going to be many options which won't be available to you. And here I go, I'm back onto film grain. I really do enjoy playing around with the film grain settings. I don't know why that is, but I really enjoy it, and you can see there it works so well. So big fan of the film grain. But that is the iOS app, and you can see a kind of before and after, and there I am saving that image, a Kodak Portrait 160 with loads of film grain. So I'm really happy with that. Yeah, so go and have a look at the Dehancer iOS app on the App Store. You can play around with it until your heart's content. You can download it for free, and if you want to know any more kind of information in regards to the app, you can also go on your online browser, and you can see here it's even got a high rating here, 4.0 out of 5. And if we go down to the bottom here, you can see the information, the specifications that you would need to run it, the price being free, and basically across here the in-app purchase is all about how many times you might export your pictures. And I would say that there's a price range for everybody, and you can select which one suits you. Okay, so we've got to that point. It's the end of the review. We finally got here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of go over what I like about Dehancer and what I kind of maybe think they could improve. Remember, I'm no expert, I'm just giving you my honest opinion. What are my honest thoughts on Dehancer Pro for Final Cut Pro? Well, here are my positives. Once installed, the actual software, or plugin if you like, was really easy to use and very intuitive even for someone like me. Whilst I'm by no means an expert, which I will reiterate many times, I really enjoyed playing around with the various settings to see how it could change the look of my video. I really did get a lot out of that. It's hard to convey, but I got really excited and I really enjoyed that. Also, the software works seamlessly on iMac, and I've encountered no bugs or glitches. And I should also reiterate my point from earlier and say that the information in the quick guide is detailed and will help me in the future when I come to grade my footage. You know, that was my error, and the information in there is really useful. So yeah, and I suppose there are a few things which I think could do with improving. And just before I start there, I think with regard to what I just mentioned about the quick guide, I think that Dehancer need to kind of make it clear that it's not just a quick guide like to set up, but within that quick guide there is basically lots of information with how the app works, because the term quick guide, at least for me, it's just literally how you set something up very quickly and then you crack on with it. So yeah, anyway, these are the few things that I think could do with improving. Firstly, I personally found the process of installing the plugin very confusing and cumbersome. Whilst the customer service from Dehancer was excellent, I've got no problems with the customer service, I feel like it would have been easier to download and install if it was available on the App Store, like the iOS app for iPhone. Instead, it's all done on Dehancer's website, and I found the process quite confusing, and I'm quite tech savvy, and if I'm confused, then I can guarantee that quite a lot of other people might be confused. Secondly, after you install the plugin, you have to activate your license for the software, and that is also carried out on Final Cut Pro. And I also found that confusing because they say, here is your license, and you say, okay, fantastic, but then you have to activate that within the plugin. Now maybe that's common, I don't have lots of plugins, but I found that quite confusing because generally it's download onto your system, bosh. So I found that a little bit confusing. And then lastly, I think it would have been useful to have some kind of on-screen information regarding the various grading settings, if, like me, you were working with no working knowledge. So maybe a little section within the software that explains each setting. And I should just be clear, I don't know if I've ever mentioned it in any of my recent videos, but I've got ADHD, and sometimes I will just race off ahead to do something, and sometimes I won't think about kind of going back and checking something. So if something is there in front of me, allowing me to understand what it is that I'm working with, that can be quite useful. So yeah, there's my kind of pros and cons. So to sum up, overall I feel very positive about the whole experience, genuinely, and I'll genuinely continue to use this software in my videos. Furthermore, I really want to understand all of the settings, I do, and how they can support me to capture exactly what I have in mind for a project. That kind of excites me quite a bit. I want to thank Dehancer for letting me test their product, and I will certainly recommend it to others, genuinely. Now, don't forget that if you want to try Dehancer Pro or any of the other Dehancer products for other computers or software, as mentioned earlier, you can get 10% off by using the discount code very kindly provided by Dehancer, and that code will be in the description below. So if you're interested or if you're curious, have a go, use that 10% off and start grading. So that's the end of my review. I hope it's been of some use. It's been quite a learning process for me. It's taken me almost the entire weekend to put this together. Let me know what you think in the comments. Give me some honest feedback, and yeah, thanks very much. So this is me, and I'm signing off, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.